Hey guys, Helen Hartsmith here again from the Heart of the Witch's Path YouTube channel. Hope you're having a good day. I am. I'm a little nasally sounding, so I'm sorry about that. I kind of picked up another bug, and so I'm trying to get over that, and it's kind of lingering a bit. I just noticed I'm getting a little bit of a flash there. Hopefully that's not too distracting for you guys. Anyhow, so here I am with my video response for the 2018 YouTube Pagan Challenge. This year we're doing the ABCs of Paganism, and this is my video response for the letter C. I don't know how that's going to come across, but C. So for C, I chose to use correspondences as my word to talk about for C. And I did it because I decided I decided correspondence says, because as a witch, when we deal with spell work, you know, we're constantly looking at correspondences for, you know, our various spells, and sometimes you might be looking for a stone to go with your intent. Sometimes you might be looking for a color or an herb or a tree or things like that. And so we deal with them as witches quite often whenever we do spell work, for the most part. I mean, and of course, I think I should, you know, start the conversation by saying that correspondences aren't necessarily needed or necessary. You know, the art of magic is manipulating energy for a specific purpose. And so correspondences aren't necessary. You know, we can work our will to bring about the change that we're looking for. It just so happens that in spell work, using things like stones, colors, candles, all those types of things, they help to kind of tie things together a little easier. They help to give us an item or a candle or a charm bag, whatever, you know, a spray, a tincture. It gives you a tangible physical thing that you can help to focus your energy. And so that's helpful, which is kind of nice for this spiritual path and for working magic. So just kind of thought I'd throw that out there first. And so I kind of gathered my correspondence information that I have been compiling. At first I thought that I would talk about books that I have that help me with correspondence work. And I do have some, don't get me wrong. I do have some. And if you're interested in something like that, Kathy and I have kind of been toying with a top 10 for that. And I maybe have even done, because I feel like I might have pulled together plant books at some point or something along those lines. I'll look through my records, and if I've done a blog post or if I've done a video where I've talked about correspondence work, then I'll definitely link that in the description box. It's really easy for me to go pull books off a shelf and show you, oh, I like this book, and here's why. But I have the opinion that, and it might not be a popular opinion, you might not agree with me, and that's okay, but this is how correspondence work works best for me. I have found that I want to have lists. I'm kind of a list person, and so I want to do the work myself. And that doesn't mean that I have tested out every single item that's on my lists for every single thing that I have them listed for, because I mean, once you kind of see where I'm at, you'll find or you'll have the opinion that that's kind of crazy. But here's the point that I want to get at. I think that because this path that I am on is my own, and it's very different from yours, from the next person, from my coven sisters, from my teachers even. My path is unique and it's my own, as is everyone else's. And so I have found that in my history and working with things, I might have worked with a plant, for instance, that not other people work with that in the same way that I have. For example, I was looking for an herb that would help me with a healing spell that I wanted to work for a friend of mine. She was having shoulder problems. She was looking at surgery. She was looking at the possibility of being in an immobilizer for months. And so I went to meditation and I sought out an herb because I was looking for an herb that was willing to work with me and willing to work with my friend. And rosemary came my way. And rosemary is generally like a strength and protection herb. And so I can see where those types of things could be helpful with healing, but healing wasn't necessarily something that was in Rosemary's wheelhouse as far as information that I could find. But rosemary, in conjunction with some other things that happened in the spell, worked exceedingly well. And that surgery that my girlfriend had ended up, they only found some loose, rough cartilage that they cleaned up. And so instead of her being in an immobilizer for multiple months and going through a lot of physical therapy and things of that nature, she just had some cartilage cleaned up, and her recovery time was quick, and she was very, and I'm not going to say that, oh, my spell is the only thing that helped with that, because that's just not, that's not necessarily the whole thing, but I think that it really did help. And so that's the kind of thing that I want to get at. Your relationships with the items that you come into contact with can be unique. And even though things like Scott Llewellyn's plant book and Scott Cunningham, his stone book and his plant book are probably one of the most popular books still to this day, even though they came out, I don't even know what their dates are. Yes, they're good books, but you could come up with something that you might not find in there. So that's the point that I want to make. So let me start off by saying that if you saw my video on my Book of Light, you'll see my correspondence section in my Book of Light as it stands. And so I kind of pulled out those pages again to kind of show you where I'm at with my Book of Light and to explain kind of where I'm going from there, because there's not a whole lot there, if you'll notice. But what I have here is I have, let's see, these are goddess, crystal, and stone correspondences. So this is a list of goddesses and stones that are sacred to them. And that's something that I found a long time ago, and I've had that in all of my Book of Lights, I think, for as far back as I can remember. This is elemental correspondences. I won't hold that up so you but there's attributes and herbs and stones and things like that correspond with the 4 elements. I also have some stones. Boom, boom. And so that's kind of cool. And then this is a really small, short herb correspondence sheet that kind of tucks in my little pocket there. And so that's what I have in my Book of Light right now. And I've really been, in the last few years, I've really been working on developing my list, my personal list of correspondences. And I feel that these things that are currently in my Book of Light, I feel like I've grown past them. Like I already have a much larger list for both stones and herbs that it's a lot more information than what's here. And so I'm kind of at a point with my organizing of myself that I'm trying to figure out, okay, let's get all the lists and then let's kind of see what my needs are. And I've got a couple of ideas and I'll go ahead and share them with you and kind of go from there. So as far as my lists go, let me start off by saying that all of these lists I have compiled by looking at various things. I've looked at books, I've looked at personal experiences, I've looked at some Googling even. There's some decent information out there, and I know that it's really easy for you to go and Google, stones that are good for traveling, or an herb that's good for healing, or whatever. And that's great. And if that's how you want to work your magic, that's awesome. If it works for you, I say go for it. But I wanted something different. I wanted my lists that I could, go through a book and kind of have. So if the internet crashes, I still have all my lists. That's my big reason. So where I'm at right now, and I've got a lot more lists now than what I have currently in my Book of Light. I hope this is all making sense and not too disjointed. If it is, I'm really sorry. I'm trying to stay focused. So I found things that work easy for me is to format. Let's talk about formatting. This is my current stone correspondence file, and I'm not sure how many pages this is. It's probably about 6. And I'm not printing one of these each week, so don't yell at me and say you're wasting paper, yakety schmackety blah blah blah, because that's not how I roll. I try to keep, things concise and not print things unless I feel like I'm at a point where I need them, and I won't necessarily print something again unless I have a bevy of additional information that I've added, which at this point, I don't think that's going to happen. So this is probably the list as it stands. But anyhow, I like formatting it landscape in 2 columns so that I can fold it in half. Because if you watched my video about it's a Helen's Helpful Hints, I talked about buying notebooks like this. This is I think this is an A5 size, and these are all my full moon rituals. And so I've done the same thing here. I folded them in half, and then you enclose the page so that you've got all of those things. So you can buy a pretty notebook, or if someone gifts you a notebook or a journal and you don't necessarily have a use for it, this is a decent use for it. And so you can do something like that. So I find that I like this kind of formatting. I can do something like that, or I keep these lists in my journal. And my journal, I pretty much take with me everywhere. And of course, as I work through from one journal to the next. So stone correspondences, so that's one list. I also have a list of food correspondences because someone that might be into food magic or kitchen witchery, whatever kind of words that you identify with, foods are a correspondence as well. And so a birthday cake can correspond with prosperity, or a pretzel can be protection. And that kind of makes sense because a pretzel is twisted up, and so it's stronger and it's therefore protective. So I have a list for foods, and this list is actually broken down into baked goods and grains and vegetables and fruits. And there's even meats on here. And yes, I don't eat meat, but that doesn't mean that someone else might not want that kind of information. So those are that's another type of correspondence that you can possibly work with. Of course, there's herbs, and this is a very hefty file. And included in this herbs, in the herbs too, I attached it here because I had room to print it. I've done some dried bean spell work in recent years, and so I have a separate list of bean correspondences and what they are good for. One of my favorites is a cranberry, or it's also known as an October bean. They're kind of like a kidney bean, but they're spotted. They're actually really good. They're good in a vegetable soup, but a cranberry bean will attract new opportunities. So that, some things like that to think about in your spell work. There's correspondences all around you guys. Of course, there's colors, and I've done a video where I talked about colors and how I use them, so I'll try to remember to link that down below as well. I also have a file for tree correspondences. Again, it's all formatted the same way. And there's a lot of information in here, and this a lot of the information that I have for trees kind of have a bent towards the Celtic and the Ogham, because the trees were sacred to the Celts, so there's information about that in each of these. So that's another list that I keep. I also have a larger, this is kind of a multi-paged elemental correspondence table. So this has your earth, air, fire, water, and spirit in columns, and then there's tons of correspondence work. This is actually I want to say that I found this as a graphic, and I typed everything into an Excel document so that I could make it smaller and clearer. There's some interesting stuff like the elemental ruler, as far as like Ariel is the air elemental ruler, personality types, planets, plants, different things like that. So this, I think it's helpful to have different formats for correspondence work, so that if you needed an air plant, then you could come to something like this. Whatever makes things easy reference for you, I say go for it. And for me, those types of things work exceptionally well. One other thing that I wanted to talk about, because yes, I'm a list person, I also keep lists of the correspondence items that I have on hand. So for instance, I have a list of the herbs that I have on hand. So I keep a list alphabetically. I will make a notation of like what to use them for, and I'll also make a notation for how much I have on hand. And so that's really helpful if I know that I'm going to go shopping, then I can quickly take this list out and reference, if I'm looking for something, or if I see something and say, am I out of frankincense powder? Well, I can reference my list and it'll tell me. So I have one for plants, I have one for stones, and I have one for essential oils. And I also kind of keep a list, on the essential oils, there are some that I wanted. And so I have the little box there that says, I want to get that if I come across a particular store that has it. So those are other correspondence lists that I keep too. And they're, like I said, they're small enough that if I need to, I can pull them out of my journal and stick them in my purse if I know that I'm going shopping. So those are kind of like how I look at correspondences. And so you can see I've got a lot of stuff going on. And so now my challenge is how to organize them to make it easier, because it's nice that I have them with me all the time, but they're just kind of loose leaf pages right now that, yes, they're kind of grouped together by topic, but I need an organizational system that will allow me to quickly reference them. So I did think about going this route, and because I do have other empty journals, but I was afraid that this is the stack. I feel like this would probably not be a really effective system to kind of keep those lists. And so actually, as I was getting ready to film this video today, my eyes fell on something that was on my shelf, and I'm kind of liking this idea, and I might run with it and see what how it works out. So I have this. This is a little. I think this is considered A5. This is an A5 3-ring binder, and this is, I've actually had this binder for an incredibly long time. Like I am thinking college days, to be completely honest with you. And I do have some paper in here right now, as you can see, but this one's really nice because it's one of those that, it has, the clear plastic on the front, on the spine, and on the back. So I could do like a really cool printable and stick in here, you know, correspondences and things like that. And it's already got a spot on my shelf, so that's really interesting. So there's a couple of ways that I could go about doing this. I could take these lists and I could separate them all out and then do a hole punch and stick them in that way, because they're a natural page type thing. Or I know that there's a lot of accessories for this size three ring binder that I can buy. I know that I can buy sheet protectors. I know that I can buy little pockets and things of that nature that I can put into this. And so I might look into that and see, because it's easy enough for me to put the existing pages that I have in sheet protectors and stick them in here, and I can get little tabs and make it really easy, and I can try playing with that and seeing how that works for me. So if you're interested in seeing how, like, do I go through with this? I'm gonna let that idea marinate for a little bit and just kind of, you know, is that gonna work for me or not? I'll let this idea kind of stew in the brain matter there. And if I do end up trying that, and if you're interested in what it looks like, then let me know, because I'll definitely share it and see how it goes. If you have an idea for an organization, I would like to see what you folks out there are doing with your correspondence lists. If you're doing something like this, then I would love to hear how you're kind of putting things together. How are you organizing things? Mine are all individual lists that I keep digital files of, so I can include them in my my digital book of light, or I can, you know, make notations and changes to, and things like that. So that's correspondences and how I work with them. And I think I probably just touched on, you know, the beginning of things. But that's kind of where I'm at right now, and I'm already at like 24 minutes, so I'm gonna wrap it up, okay? So if you liked this video or learned something from it, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, please hit that subscribe button, because we like to have you come back here to the channel and check stuff out. Make a comment down below, or if you are not comfortable making a comment super publicly, then you can definitely email me at heartofthewitchespath@yahoo.com. Please check out the Instagram, the Heart of the Witches Path Instagram. I'm trying to pull some kind of a tarot card or a rune of the day, just to give us something to think about. And so that's kind of fun to do. Things like that. So that's going to be it for this video. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching, and thanks for walking the path for a little while with me. Until next time, blessed be.